So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the functioning of the spirit or how the spirit works. The spirit itself is with us 24/7 every day of our lives. But how does it actually make itself known and how do we actually use it? Well, to understand that, we're going to have to take a few steps back and talk about what is the actual environment that we're living in. So that environment is a paradox. It's a paradox that came about with our birth, and it is established when you're both material and immaterial. You're both organic and inorganic. You're both body and spirit. So this was established in the beginning as you came into this journey. Now, the paradox is a natural aspect of nature, and nature, of course, is the overriding part of everybody's life and the world and the universe and everything. Everything that can be known, everything that can be experienced, everything that can be understood, it's all part of nature. And the paradox is a central understanding of the nature of the reality that we live in, that there is more than one reality at the same time. For instance, let's take, how does the manifestations of the spirit come to be recognized within the paradox? Well, we know our social situation, we know our organic functionality, where we are primarily perceivers and we are quite predominant in seeing with our external vision in our eyes, but not so much so from the spiritual side of things. So on the organic side, we actually see things and then we come to feel them. But on the spiritual side, we feel things and then we see them. So within the paradox, when you first came into this experience through your own volition and your own agreement, that was your first agreement, that you would come into this 3D reality and gain awareness of it. That was your specific purpose and agreement. When that transpired and then you embodied the human form, then also came the mental aspect associated with that form. In other words, the mind. Now, the brain is the organic constituent of it, and the mind is inorganic. But the thing that we want to note about the paradox in the 3D reality is that common everyday events, everything that you see around you, everything that appears just to be normal social interactions, and everything that is commonplace, everything that you see that you would see as ordinary, well, that is employed because of our organic situation. We employ the organic, we use the organic and the ordinary to go about our business, but also the spiritual world has only that common ground of the organic to express itself as well. So that any common situation in the 3D reality, the organic world, is also a spiritual in nature as well. So it combines both. So it creates the paradox. The paradox always exists. And this is the basis of understanding when we go to understand the functioning of the spirit. So just as in our daily journey, the ordinary events of our lives are used organically and inorganically by the Spirit, we have the mind. So the mind is, again, part of the paradox, and it is the common ground. The mind is the common ground for both the organic side, the egotistical side, and the inorganic side, the spiritual side. They both use the mind. In particular, they use the intelligence of the mind. And within the mind, as we go along with our social matriculation, just as life occurs and we advance in age, then another part of the paradox is that is an organic external situation that we advance in time. To us, organically, in a 3D reality, time is linear and it only progresses forward. But in the spiritual reality, there is no such thing as time in a linear reality sense. That's why if anybody just closes their eyes, they couldn't tell their age. You can't tell your age between if you're 70, 50, 40, or 25. It all feels the same to you because there's no time there, and you feel in the spirit. So there is another part of the paradox that exists between the spirit and the ego. So again, just like in normal reality, both the organic side and the inorganic side, the body and the ego and the spirit, have only the mind as their common ground. Now, it is the intelligence within that mind that gets to choose how that common ground is understood. So as you go along socially and you're educated and come to certain opinions and everything on the social side, you'll form social beliefs. You'll form beliefs about your 3D reality experience. But also, during that time, not quite as common, you will come to start to develop spiritual beliefs, things that will be true for everybody. That's how one of the ways that you can distinguish a spiritual belief from the social belief, that the spiritual beliefs are true for everybody. Now, when you put these beliefs into practice, because our beliefs actually create our behaviors, on the egotistical side of using our intelligence, our beliefs will be used to accomplish objectives and to do our bidding as we understand the world of what our desires or what we want the world to be or what we think the world should be and what we want to make of the world. So it's all an external situation. But on the spiritual side of it, that is less a reasoning, logical determination. It's more of a force, and that's how you're going to feel it. Any occurrence happens in your life, you are going to make a choice whether you're going to use emotions, logic, reason to react and respond to it, or even to be proactive about it. Or you can choose to let the mind be more still and more calm and let the force of the Spirit guide your application as to how you should respond in a 3D experience. So in any 3D experience, you might come across something that, let's say, makes you angry. And so you respond with that type of reciprocity. But if you choose to respond in the spiritual way, and remember they have different characteristics where the ego in the 3D reality is a more prideful type of event, and the spirit is a more humbling, loving type of situation. If you go with the force of the spirit, which your intelligence, your intellect can override, it can choose either path, the ego path or the spiritual path, it can choose whichever one you want. And then it will be automatically part of the behavior that comes across as you respond to your experience. So there's a whole lot more to that, but that in a nutshell is how you want to start thinking and understanding and knowing the difference between your organic situation and the ordinary events that you have, and let them become spiritual events where you're letting the force of your spirit and your spiritual nature take over, and you're doing it by choice. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't still feel the organic feelings that come with it. In other words, you could still end up feeling whatever the situation calls for. Again, maybe you feel anger inside, but since you're choosing to let the force of the spirit and the spiritual beliefs actually guide your actions and behaviors, it's almost like you're feeling a separate bodily event where the anger is something that just cannot come into fruition because it has no place to enact itself from, because the mind isn't going to serve it. The mind is serving the spirit. So as we go through our life and grow in our experience and everything, we tend to form generalized social established ideas and opinions, and many times everybody just tends to reiterate those. But to live really an authentic life is one where you want to follow your own conscience, or really you want to employ your own spirit. You want to start your spirit to be functioning, and so that all the functionality of the spirit, which we're not going into everything, but had previously described, how you come to locate it, how you come to feel it, how it functions, that is more authentically you. Now, even as part of the paradox, and every individual is unique, well, that's the same thing with the spirit. Every spirit is unique, but every spirit is also the same. So that's just part of the paradox. It's not something that you have to logically come to understand, but in your spirit, you can feel the truth of it, because that's how the spirit comes to see the world, through feeling. So you can feel whether that's correct or not. Now, what ends up being not quite as important then is our personal fortunes and fames and accolades and everything that we accumulate in the organic reality, because as we accumulate those, even from a young person to whatever age we get to, that's just a personal history. But that personal history and those accomplishments can be very satisfying and can be accepted as being satisfying and satisfactory. But awareness is what you were sent here to gather and come to actually search for and keep. And that awareness is the spiritual side of your nature. You already know the organic side. Now you want to know the spiritual side, so it's more holistic, so you can be a whole person and use the spirit as your precursor to your actions and your behaviors. And then you can kind of, just like the anger was subdued when you intellectually chose to let the force of the spirit govern your actions, it's kind of the same type of relationship where your human accomplishments are then secondary to gaining awareness. Now, the social world, the day-to-day world, where we have to work and gather and provide and all those things, would just as soon that you not be worried, not be concerned, not even engage the spirit, because the 3D world, the business world, the academic world, the world of possessions, there's actually no place for the spirit there that lets it be paramount. So when you think of your life and where you're going and where you're heading and what you're trying to accomplish by the end of your life, you often hear the expression, coming home or going home or something like that. Well, the only way that you can truly feel that you're going home and feel the purpose of your life and feel the truth of your journey is through the functioning of the spirit. So that's why you want to use your intellect to choose to let the spirit be the guiding influence in your behavior, and choose awareness to start accumulating and formulating your spiritual beliefs. So if we take this back to the very beginning, our origin, again, in the very, very beginning, we were nothing but a ball of energy, a swirling mass of energy, and that was our nature. We were formless at that time, but that is when we made our first agreement. That is when we agreed to come into a 3D organic reality to gain awareness. That was our specific agreement, our specific purpose. And when we made that agreement, we perforce became an emissary or an ambassador or a volunteer or an agent, all meaning the same thing. And our purpose then was to gather awareness. So as an ambassador and an emissary, we carried with us not only our reason for being, but our purpose, our objective, and also the authority with which we made the agreement. Without going into it in too much detail, that was our will agreeing with a greater will. And like I said, many times throughout your life, the spirit side of things, the spiritual side of things, people make it hocus pocus. They make it as though it's something almost unnatural, where it is a very natural thing with you, and it's with you 24/7 every part of the day. But we have to so focus on making a living, being part of a social situation and different social groups and everything, that we kind of run on automatic doing that, and we tend to remain unconscious of our reason for being. And if that is the way, then what's going to control our lives is these unconscious routines, and we're going to remain unconscious of our purpose and actually of our spirit as well. So in all the different details we talked about being an emissary or an ambassador, because we agreed to come here to do a specific objective, that's the service that we're providing. And if we're providing that service, we are actually servants. We are servants of the greater will. Okay, that kind of got messed up there, but the point was being that we are then servants of the greater will. And that's one part of the paradigm, one part of the paradox that we want to break through, of being unconscious of having a spirit and being unconscious of being a servant and being unconscious of the service that we provide. So in conclusion, I mean, what we do not want to do, the mistake we do not want to make, is to say, this is my world. This belongs to me. Everything I accumulate, everything I possess, everything I'm going to get from the world. That wasn't your purpose. That wasn't your reason for coming here to do that. Your purpose was to gain awareness, essentially, of the spirit and the functioning of the spirit in the 3D reality. And so the more applicable way of viewing it is that you're going to intellectually choose to lead the spiritual path and let the spirit lead. And by doing so, it's essentially making the statement, well, this is their world. Now, you want to do everything you can that's appropriate in the world. You want to do your best in the world. You want to do your best socially and organically for everybody else and yourself. But within the spirit, it's still understood that this is their world. It's just a temporary experience while you're gathering this awareness. So that's it for this video, but if you want to make any comment about it or further discussion on it, please go ahead and reply to it, and we'll just continue the discussion on the functioning of the spirit.